like to call to order the Conservation Commission meeting for August 8th, 2016. Are there any public concerns or non-agenda items? Okay. There are no public hearings or meetings. I don't think we have any certificate of compliance requests. The emergency certification, the only thing that was on that list was the tractor trailer rollover that happened at 91 last week. So I don't know if Jessica, do you hear anything new about that, or?
No, I just wanted to keep the commission in the loop as I was getting information coming into the office. And
Right.
Jay, I appreciate you actually being able to get out there and snap some photos.
Yeah, I talked to the company. It was Environmental Services out of South Windsor, Connecticut, that was doing the cleanup. And they told me that both fuel tanks were punctured in the rollover with diesel fuel, and that there was engine oil also on the highway. And then we got about an inch to inch and a half of rain at 4 o'clock in the morning to wash it all down, get it into the swale along the rail trail and then towards the Oxbow. But at the time, they didn't feel that the Oxbow was in jeopardy. They didn't see any oil slick on the water or anything like that. So I'm not sure there's anything that we need to do at this point with that. It's just see if they're going to follow up with anything.
Okay, and so it sounds like DEP was definitely involved in that.
They were there first thing in the morning, yes.
Yeah. I mean, it was really just a courtesy call to the commission that
Yeah.
that the truck had spilled, the spill was happening. They weren't sure whether there was going to be impacts to the wetlands or to the Oxbow, but they wanted to give a heads up to the commission that they were investigating it. And the individual that I spoke to on the phone was supposed to be sending an email with updates, but I haven't seen anything come through, unless it's in the commission's email, not
No,
my email.
that was someone with DEP?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right. Okay, so I guess we can assume that
They were doing testing. When I talked to them, they said there was still a couple of hot spots that they were still removing. They had scraped down the side of 91. They had moved material from the swale and were loading into big dumpsters to haul it away. So I believe they were all over it.
Okay.
I'll wait for you to catch up. So that
All right.
enforcement orders, 37 South Street. As far as we're concerned, the piles were moved. I still think he has things to do with the spring, maybe for another evaluation of the trees that he planted. Or maybe even better this year, we should look that up.
Excuse me, Jay?
Yes.
Can we speak on some of these, or just?
You can ask questions if I can answer them, yeah,
Sure.
or we can answer.
Well, I know we're gonna deal with Mr. Boyle's property later, but in going through some of the minutes and some of your films, I haven't had that much time, but I noticed like this particular item has been on the agenda for 3 years. And I know there's, I know there's ongoing maintenance where, but like the mulch alone was months being moved. And I guess I'm asking in a general question what the board's authority is, in other words, enforcement authority.
I don't believe we have a lot of enforcement authority, so, I mean, to go on Mr. Gall's property, I have to have permission from Mr. Gall to go on his property to even look at the piles and things like that.
I know, like, from the bike path today, you can still see at least some pile of mulch, a couple of piles of mulch. I know this is within the 200-foot.
There was a buffer zone of 200 feet from the riverfront that if he got the mulch pile over by those pine trees, he was outside the map. And I had a map to confirm that with him, so I believe it was moved into an area that was outside the riverfront.
So you can keep these on and definitely, I mean.
Well, 37 South Street had a couple issues because he had planted some invasive species shrubs many years ago that he was asked to have removed and plant some native species. And I think we want them to make sure we get a couple of good years out of them. I think that's why it's still on here, because he has to follow up and say, if they die, who's going to replace them, things like that.
No, I was just looking, it looked like through some of the minutes, and I don't have the dates on here, but it looked like you had to send them like registered letters, and just on, and he was like saying one section he didn't even know was included, this goes back months. I mean, again, I'm going back months now.
I think we probably.
And I just kind of wonder what your enforcement, at some point, can You know, like,
We
can you
don't
move
have-
somebody along?
We don't have a lot of authority to do anything like that.
Which is another question I have, if I can bear with you. And I guess this isn't on the agenda item, it was, you looked like you were looking down for like wetland ordinance. It was on your agenda for a while and now it suddenly disappeared. And is this tightening up? I know it was removed from the city, some tighter restrictions were removed from the city at one point. And I didn't know if the committee was looking to actually get stronger enforcement of the wetlands, or if that was the reason, but I know it's been now removed off your agenda. and-
Well, it's still on our agenda to talk about, but sometimes when the meetings are going 2 hours, we don't get to it.
I didn't see it, that's why.
Yeah.
It's
But
been an oversight on Melissa's part, but
It's still,
but
it's
I'm not
still
sure how much
open.
enforcement we can write into that that's gonna allow us to do anything different than what we're doing.
and then my final question, and again, there's 3 of them here, 2 are Mr. Gall's and 1 is Carolyn Surf, I don't believe that's his.
No, it's not.
What causes something to just be potential for a long period of time? Because I noticed like the Groveland has been since winter, and Davies Farm has been ongoing for a while, and that seems like it's something where state agencies have been in, and I guess I don't know why there's still potential if they're, have identified a violation.
Because I don't believe we've heard back from both state agencies, the Forestry Service and the Department DEP, on what their viewpoint is. We had tours out on the property with Mr. Gall with both groups, and I don't think Melissa's heard back from them yet.
I would just add my 2 cents from an administrative standpoint. If there's concern about agenda items staying too long in terms of enforcement, I would advocate for a conservation agent. This committee does a tremendous job as a volunteer board, doing above and beyond what most city boards do in terms of their activity. And I think they do a tremendous job, but some of these items take a long time because they're a volunteer board and my time is limited. So if we had a staff person, like even a half-time conservation agent, that could deal with this stuff on a day-to-day basis, maybe some of these would move along a little quicker.
Would that person have any enforcement authority?
They would have the ability to go out and follow up on these things a little bit quicker, and they'd be able to take care of the paperwork possibly a little bit quicker. Each of these enforcement orders require paperwork and letters and certified letters. Again, I think the commission does a tremendous job with the limited capacity that we have. So I would say if this is a concern to you as a citizen, I would encourage you to advocate for a conservation agent.
I just have one question
We're getting off.
on the enforcement side of it. Is it something that the commission can refer to, say, the DEP? If something's been on the agenda for 3+ years or a year plus and it's not being handled by the property owner, isn't that the next step is to refer it to the DEP?
Well, the DEP is involved in the Groveland Street property and the former Davies Farm for the Forestry Service. So how long have they been tied into this? 3 months? 2 months? Because we did a tour, I could look up what date we did the tour, but I don't believe that we've heard back from them on what their opinion is and what the enforcement should be. And they certainly have more power, because we had no power, they certainly have more power than us.
It's good.
Go ahead.
So,
Can you state your name for the record?
Ken Bushy, 43 Highland. Just a question, as far as the board, you have no, you can't like fine people or, like hold them accountable?
Not in our current
So who would have to, who would be the one that would enforce,
Well,
like fine somebody or make them do
The
something?
DEP can certainly
DEP.
enforce something, but there is no statute in our local government that would put us in a position to be able to fine someone for a violation.
I always thought that you could, do stuff like that, so I'm just
So,
asking.
because we don't have a bylaw or ordinance, then we can't, as a board ourselves, can't find anyone. That's why we're still working on the ordinance, because we're trying to figure out, like, how many days can we wait before we find someone?
Yeah.
What's the extended amount of time, but we're gonna eventually get to that. When we're ready then.
So if I like dump a bunch of trash next to a brook and someone finds it, I can potentially, I'm not saying I'm gonna do it, I guess I'm kind of putting this in perspective of that there's no way unless like DEP.
Other than through the state.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of these cases, we try to pursue whatever avenues we can. If it's a
Yeah.
possible Board of Health issue, then we go that way. If we can get DEP involved, then we do that. we can't find people ourselves, but, you know, in one case, we tried to get law enforcement involved.
Trespassing issues were
Yeah.
involved, so we could get law enforcement because someone was trespassing to
Yeah.
cause the problem.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it seems like most of these avenues seem to take a long time and, you know, often hit a dead end, you know,
Yeah.
other places too.
So people can kind of run around on you guys and keep something, you know.
Well, technically they can.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Gall has been cooperative on all our site visits and meeting with the DEP and the Forestry Service and all that. He's made his time available, so, you know, I can't argue with him for that. And the things that are on the list as enforcement, those are problems for us, but he's been cooperative.
Mhm.
I mean, some towns they have agents with ticket books that go out and, you know, just write a ticket and just give it to
Yeah.
somebody for environmental.
I come from that, so I
Yeah.
kind of thought, you know, and this is a learning process for me, is what your powers are, because,
But even with the
Yeah.
previous, I'm not sure that was even part of the previous
Local ordinance,
local
when there was
ordinance.
one.
Yeah.
Well, it was gotten rid of in the eighties, mid-eighties,
Early 90s.
early nineties.
95, 98.
So, I mean, there was an ordinance on the books, and I don't know the history of why it was
Yeah.
removed, but it was removed. So the commission is looking to try to bring that back, but all those things take time.
oh, yeah.
So, and I think everybody does the best that they can under the time constraints that we have, so.
Yeah.
I think people don't, the public in general doesn't realize a few things. One, since 2008, the DEP's been gutted. The DEP is not out of the enforcement world, but they've been handcuffed. To take any enforcement action, all the paperwork has to be done right. That's what the purpose of a conservation agent would be. A volunteer board can't be expected to dot all the i's and cross all the t's to not expose the city for liability.
Mhm.
That's what Jessica's getting at. There's a lot on their plate. Just a simple notice of intent is not straightforward anymore. And, you know, so it's not as a matter of like, the Board of Health can do a show cause hearing in district court. Conservation Commission with the laws, it's not like that. It's not so straightforward.
Moving on.
Moving on. So I believe we spoke about Groveland Inn, former Davies Farm enough. 47 Carolyn Circle, that was something else that was brought in front of DEP. I had not heard anything back from Melissa on what the possibility was there, but I checked out the site. There was a place from an area that looks like it could be a wetland, the pipe that went across to the neighbor's property that they were speaking of, so I'm not sure the flow is in the right direction where it would cause them flooding, but that's not my expertise to be able to determine that, but I think we have to get back from Melissa what the state came back with on that. And then the Autumn Properties at 181 Northampton Street, we did a site visit on 7:30. And if you want to speak a little bit about the soils that were in the area and what.
Yeah, so, I took an auger to the site, as many of you know. I just found out from the Munstall's book that I also brought with me that it had a depleted matrix, or somewhat close to a depleted matrix. There's a specific color code, which is wetland scientists use, and looking up in the U.S. Army Corps hydric soils indicators book, I would say it's a hydric soil, and therefore there is wetlands on the site. There's a little marginal vegetation, but I think it's still worthwhile.
Because of the drought, we're
Yeah,
probably not seeing.
and there was not much herbaceous layer to it, but I think it's a worthwhile check out. I mean, if someone were to go delineate the site or whatever we decide.
Well, you don't have to delineate it. I have the delineation, it's all wet. And I have notice of intent, I'll give you the copies, but there's no controversy, it's wetland.
Yeah.
It's, you know, there's no, it's 161 too, just. for
Okay, the whole range, well, we just said on our thing.
No,
we
no,
said-
181 is two properties down in a
Okay.
different property
I
owner,
see.
so don't,
Okay.
please don't. That's my father, I don't want to.
Yeah.
So we felt that, based on looking at, we were within 200 feet of, a perennial stream, things like that. So we felt that the mowing was occurring within some kind of buffer zone. But the question is whether we want to pursue some type of enforcement order, or whether we're comfortable with that it's not going to happen again.
No, it's not gonna happen again. I spoke to my brother, he was carried, like I mentioned in the site visit, he got carried away, but, it's all done. And, feel free to go out there anytime, anybody. We're not gonna post our property. If you need to go out there, go ahead. I'll give you the copies of things that seem to be missing.
What other people feel about commitment to Mr. Boyle, whether that's enough to.
I guess I'm not familiar enough. I missed.
Yeah,
every
you
other
missed the site
meeting.
visit,
Site
so,
visit, so I'm just not in a position really to say what I think.
You have one piece of additional leverage. I don't have a certificate of compliance yet, so I'll be asking for that at some point. So.
So, have an opinion where to go from here on this to.
So just so I have it correct in
Yeah,
here,
go ahead.
so you were looking at wetlands, and then the question is if it's a buffer zone?
Well, we
or-
feel, based
or
on,
riverfront.
where the river is, how close the mowing occurred, is we're within 200 foot of a perennial stream. It's pretty dry at this time of the year based on the drought we're in.
Okay,
And basically, it's not, mowing hasn't, it's not like the mowing occurred on the side of the riverbank and
Right.
compromised where it's gonna rain and flood and wash into the brook or anything. This is just mowed to pass up top. Anything mowed to, someone can have an access for their dog to walk in the woods or something like that, so. The ground is not really disturbed that much, other than the plants that were mowed and removed, small shrubs and things like that.
Mhm.
It has tree cover over the majority of it.
Yeah, I think under normal circumstances, that would require an enforcement order, because I don't know where the mowing has occurred, like, compared to the plan that you have. I mean, any disturbance or alteration of the wetland is something that would require an enforcement order.
Well, I'll show you, the whole thing is wet. So, when I say the whole thing, I know I just got, so, this is the buildings, this is where the main kind of road came in. Somewhere right here is where that little stream and where you dug your first sample.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, this whole area is wet. I mean, and, there's that stream that goes this way, and that little spur that goes right there, well, over here, I'm sorry. This is our detention basin, this is our parking lot, but for all intents and purposes, this right here is wetland boundary line, so 20 feet off the woods, it's all wet. So this is where the main mowing occurred, and there's one or two little loops.
So my only question is protocol, what we think we should do, because I don't have an
Yeah, and that's something we can decide.
well, I mean, so there's no ground disturbance, right?
answer. Minimal ground disturbance.
Yeah,
Yep, and
it's
it's
temporary impact and.
not in a resource area.
If
Well,
it-
Or,
It's
well,
a resource-
in a riverfront area, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
within a riverfront area, but it's not like it's on the side of the hill that's gonna create an erosion situation.
Mhm.
But then it's in an actual wetland too.
But it's in a wetland, so that's a real issue.
Oh, got it.
Could I make a comment?
Sure.
I appreciate Mr. Boyle's candor, and I do believe whatever you decide, you will certainly do. I guess my only concern is that wide path that goes down. I know when you took your sample, definitely pitches straight from the parking lot down that way, and there was, where it looked like that stream was going underneath trees and roots when the water's in there, and I know the moving of silt is a problem. And as you know from our last thing on Highland Avenue is, there's always a groundwater concern for the neighbors, and that's why they're all here tonight, that they're afraid of the groundwater. And I again, I'm not saying that this has to be a massive mitigation, but I think at least should be sort of put back, at least somewhat like it was, so that like you know, a heavy rain isn't gonna carry more silt down into that area. I mean, it was, you know, again, I don't think there were certainly weren't large trees, it was mostly brush, maybe some sapling. But I mean, I think we should try to bring it back at least as much as we can for erosion purposes, if nothing else.
Well, the erosion I saw under those tree roots was all prior to any of this mowing that occurred. That looks like it.
Right, but I mean, now that it's mowed, it's gonna be, there's less resistance to water coming, as I said, it definitely pitches straight down there. It's gonna definitely, a heavy rain's gonna, I would assume, I mean, I'm not
Yeah, I
an
just-
expert, but I'm gonna have to believe that the water's gonna run faster down in there. And again, I'm not saying this has to be
I
an.
didn't feel the soil was disturbed enough where it was churned up, where you have exposed soil. You know, it was mowed, it was cleared inappropriately, but that's just my opinion looking at it. So, but regs are regs, and I'm not gonna say no to it.
I'm just,
They feel it's an enforcement order.
no, I just, again, I appreciate Mr. Boyle, he was very cooperative, and we appreciate that, I mean, the neighbors, but as I said, I just think if we can put it back a little. I mean, I don't know if maybe even sawdust you can put that slows it down, I don't know if you can put that, probably can't put that in wetlands either.
I mean, I'd be interested to do some sort of monitoring plan, just so we know that maybe vegetation is coming back, like every month or every couple months.
Yeah, I mean, I guess similar cases we've had in the last few years was the Theodore, the Theodore property, there's a similar mowing and rutting, but that one involved kind of.
Dug a trench
Yeah,
to
digging
drain
a
it, so
trench.
that was kind
Yeah.
of, that was soil, the soil was disturbed right there. So.
Quite a bit different, actually. And so that was an enforcement order with monitoring for a while afterwards.
Well, if we want to table this and have you and Melissa get out there and see the site, I don't think anything's gonna happen in the next 2 weeks. If you can get out there next Saturday or something like that, and you can see it, Melissa can see it.
Truthfully, I think we were better off just leaving it alone, because what is cleared is gonna promote new growth. Because the sun's gonna get in here, and I think, we can put hay bales, but, I don't really think there's any damage. I'm not trying to be silly or facetious.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where my mind's going to, that a lot of times if things are stable, and, the vegetation community isn't really altered, then we'll come back without doing anything, but.
Digging a silt fence in could create more of a problem,
Right.
erosion, than, putting straw wall across or something like that.
Yeah, but it might be good to do some kind of monitoring.
Yeah.
So maybe Melissa and I should put our eyes on it and then.
Okay.
You can go out there anytime you want, you don't have to give me notice.
I appreciate that.
Okay.
I just have a question on this now. Where, Highland Avenue, where's that located to this?
Make it a little bit easier. So this property pin
Yeah.
is right here.
Oh, okay.
So this is our property, the Burkowski property, and then the Highland Ave houses.
I'm just curious as to where the wetland delineation is back here, man. that's-
We didn't delineate back there. We-
Okay,
we
so
just-
it's mostly back here. Because I'm a property owner and I don't wanna do anything that, if this is deemed wetland, I don't wanna have any edge of my property. I don't know. What is it for wetlands, for buffers? 100 feet.
If you're in your mowed area of your lawn, and that's been the consistent
Yeah.
lawn that you've had, and you're not making a lawn another 50 feet back in the woods,
Right.
you're probably okay.
Okay.
And also wetland delineations are generally good for a couple of years, but then they do move around a little bit.
Okay.
So,
I was just
you
curious.
don't wanna go off an old map.
Yeah, I was just curious.
So we've never done any work here, so,
Yeah.
so we'll leave this guys for you, and this is our order of conditions. Those are copies.
So should we have a motion to continue this to the next meeting, or is it not a motionable thing?
What are you gonna say about that?
Yeah,
Well, let's just put it in the minutes that we'll,
put it on the next agenda.
you, Melissa, I'll meet you there if you want. We can all get together at the same time and check it out, and we can discuss it at the next meeting.
Okay. So this will be on the agenda for next meeting to discuss the results of that.
Is that in 2 weeks, you guys meet?
Yeah, 2 weeks would be
There's no holidays coming up.
so I just want to make sure, so the 22nd
Yep.
should be the clean date. space updates that we've been working with?
No, the Cook Road application, for that acquisition of that property in partnership with Southampton will be going to the CPA on September 1st.
What was the date on that, 21st?
September 1st.
September 1st. Okay. And so, actually, this past Sunday, I went down with the Passacomic Land Trust, and we
Okay.
did just some work on the overlooks at the, on the Power Meadow parcel. So,
Okay.
that was my update. It was awesome. Just lost some paint around. Stay and see something cakey. It's all in my shoe. And that's all I have to say about that.
That's all it is. Yes, it is.
Mount
I
Thomas
guess.
Days, we've got updated items about States. Paul Street, nearby,
Yeah, actually, the furthest down residence on the big parcel on the wetland side is, got the foundation in now. It's probably something to know about, I assume it's something to know about. But everything's.
Marston's weekly compliance updates, sorry, have you not, who has access to the conservation?
Really, Melissa.
That's it?
Yeah.
Okay, so,
For the,
It never works. Good job.
I've been CC'd on some compliance
Okay.
reports from Mark Reed, and I can certainly send that to everybody,
Okay.
so that you're aware of what's going on.
okay.
Ready to throw
I think we did see that.
That's what it wants. That's in here too, I think, so.
I've been so out of it for a while, so. They'll try to keep it up like that, but I'm sure it's not.
And in a future day, I always put it up there.
Yeah, I just,
That's fine.
have to look at it, but so.
So I thought it was sure.
There's a couple of, I think, there's definitely one that I printed out today.
It's like the site for the solar package. This is something new, Ferry Streets, this is probably for
That's
next
new.
agenda, yes.
Yep, that, I think that's for the folks up at Lathrop, maybe?
This page, it looks like Barbara on the.
Yeah.
For Lathrop, okay.
When we get there.
Yeah, okay.
But I'll send out, anything that's come through from Mark, and I think he's also sent compliance reports for, the Williston Northampton School as well.
Okay.
And even probably Mutterfield, since those are all three of his projects, right? So, I'll forward that.
Sure. Pleasant Street Mills, the only place is this area behind on that ramped area. It looks like they put the cloth down, but it looks like the cloth caved in and went down the bottom.
They're aware of it,
Yeah,
yep,
okay.
so they're supposed to fix it, and there was a couple of, I went down on, whenever that last rain was that we had, and there was a little bit of a washout across the bike trail, and, the contractor was supposed to have cleaned it up.
That looked like it was cleaned up, but
Okay,
just.
he's aware that those blankets are falling,
just
both
getting a
of them,
little-
both he and the designer are
Okay.
both aware, so that should be fixed, and there should be a decision on the plant material shortly.
Okay.
National Atlantic Mills, I don't see any activity there. The Connecticut River Oxbow boating, we're just waiting to close that one out, so we just need them to file. Mr. Boyle's 184 Northampton Street project is progressing, and the site looks stable. The Town Beach site looks stable, waiting for that to get closed out. This is the Lathrop people are sitting here for the invasive plant removal.
Yeah, what are they saying there?
They are going to begin invasive species removal work on Wednesday, August 10th, and work for 3 days. So this is our 48-hour notice.
Okay.
And this was per our amendment to the order of conditions on April 25th to allow for that.
Okay. So what day are they gonna start work?
Wednesday, August 10th.
Okay. Do we feel like we should go check in, or, no, I'm sure they're doing it.
Yeah, I think for what they're doing, and that this isn't the first time.
Yep.
I don't have any real concerns.
Okay.
Scottish Trust and Mutterfield, they're progressing with that's their place. The overlook looks pretty complete. They built that up so it's pretty level, so we don't have wheelchairs going off the cliff.
That's good.
We have a couple of these planter things built that look like they came out pretty good. So,
push off.
Yeah.
And they haven't done much work on the crossing area, so
Okay,
that's probably the next phase. We're gonna put the boards on the side of that crossing and then put the stone dust and fabric down.
Yep. Yeah. I saw on their Facebook page that people are already walking their dogs there and leaving the poop behind.
Yes, there's some complaints of that.
Yeah, so if anybody's watching, pick up your poop.
Know who you are.
Thank you. Or your dog's poop too.
Poop police will be on you.
And Wilson Cross Country Trail, this is from today on their little,
Speaking
Oh, wow.
of, I got a big pile on my line.
their bridge structure is in, yeah. You got that bridge structure in, they've got that whole chute pretty well defined with the.
Huh. They have it fast.
Yeah. So, that site looks stable also, they've got all their protection in place. I think we got an email today. I'll let you finish with that.
Bridge substructures.
Yeah.
Yep, okay.
And we had an email from someone in the pond, right?
It's a pretty.
The 48-hour notice for,
Well, their herbicide,
this is for Bassett Brook.
oh, come on.
This is something.
That's
That's that, okay. So that's the big through, so there wasn't anything on the pond then?
Yeah, should put something out here for next week. Actually, I assume the herbicide application on the pond happened already.
Have we received any?
We received
Yeah.
one, but I'm not sure we received any follow-up on what the oxygen levels were after the, before and afters or whatever.
Yeah.
I remember seeing a sign up one time. It was just a notification we were gonna do that. I didn't know we could get it.
Do they do just one treatment, or is there a second? Or does it depend on the results?
I think they had money for one, but their permit is more, in case they got more funding.
Yeah.
But there wasn't gonna be many, it was gonna be,
It was only gonna be 2 applications or something like that, it wasn't a lot.
yeah. All right.
And the Logan properties, we haven't heard anything about, it was approved, but we haven't heard anything that they started, 48-hour notice on anything there.
They just submitted their permit to the planning board, so they won't be doing anything until they get a permit to the planning board.
Okay.
Excuse me, could I ask,
Sure.
what is that? It's on O'Neill Street,
Yes, it's on the opposite side of the street from where the East Hampton Savings Bank is. There's an area there where they're gonna build a road, and he's gonna build an area to store his equipment and house his equipment for his excavating company.
You're talking about the end of O'Neill Street where it meets Route 10?
No, it's kind of a kitty corner from Industrial Parkway. It's scheduled to go
Okay.
before the planning board on September 6th. So if you want more information about the project, come to the planning board hearing on September 6th.
I thought that was Audubon land. No?
No. It's
That's-
privately owned.
Is it?
It abuts Audubon land, but it's privately owned.
And these will be buildings to store, or?
It's two buildings totaling 10,000 square feet, a driveway, and 11 parking
Okay,
spaces.
thank you.
Should add that they came before us, we did a series of hearings, we did a big peer review and had a bunch of different consultants look at the stormwater part and the wetlands.
Is this the one where you move some of the, or
Yeah, they
you
should-
moved some of the wetlands, kept the same amount of wetlands, but moved them
We
somewhere?
restore them in a different
Remember
location.
reading.
Yeah.
To swap the,
It's a complicated piece of property.
Right, I remember.
Yeah, so we did everything we could to make sure that stormwater and wetlands concerns are addressed on that site. Because we know kind of how high of a, important area it is for so many people.
Is it by that company does the replating or whatever?
Ken Middle?
I don't know, the one that does.
Silver that used to be there.
Yeah, it's across from the auto.
It's
Right next to it.
Just next to it, Dan. Okay, wait a minute. The one that
It's a
does.
vacant piece of property that has trees on it right now, there's no building.
There's no
on it.
building.
Yeah, you don't see anything.
So they're building two new buildings, a driveway, and 11.
Opposite side of the street,
From
O'Neill
Industrial
Street, from
Parkway.
Industrial Parkway, which
Right.
comes up right behind.
And you probably won't see it from the road that much anyways, it's back a little ways.
I think I measured the map, it's probably, never mind, I don't wanna speak on it.
Yeah, you'd have to look
It's like
down the-
400 feet off the.
Yeah, you'd have to look down the driveway and catch it, so it's not gonna be
Thank you.
right there on the side of the road, not that that matters, but. I don't think we can do any minute meeting, or minutes, because we don't have the right cross-section of people here for any of the last three.
Wow.
Oh, summertime.
Yeah, no, July 11th, June 27th, July 25th, no. So we can't do any of those. And,
So there was a new RDA that was sent to you today,
right, that's this
Um,
here.
that somebody or I can get back to the applicant regarding his hearing date, so he can file the legal notice.
So it looks like it's on 119 Ferry Street.
He's expanding the footprint of his house, and
Like
he had
taking the
indicated.
garage down, and putting the garage back up, and
He-
attaching it, an apartment maybe over the garage. or
He had
space.
indicated that he had a file previously with the commission, which is why, when he came to me, I said, you need to file an RBI, I can't make a call on this, it's out of my jurisdiction. So I encouraged him to file the RDA because it looks as within the riverfront. It's indicated he already had a permit at some point. It just seems like it's a little bit more complicated than a standard expansion, but, I'll let you make the call on whether it's clear or not. I just also, my advice to folks is, if one of their neighbors starts seeing activity out there, it's better for them to have gone through the paperwork so that if there's something on record and that if a call comes in for an enforcement order, there's already paperwork in place. So,
Yeah,
So I guess we can put it on the 22nd?
yeah, I think so.
so the 22nd
Yeah.
Yeah.
of August?
Yes, and then we'll decide whether at that, depending on what it really entails, whether we need a site visit or more information.
Yeah, I looked at that and I did not remember having done anything.
It wasn't
before.
familiar to me, but.
Yeah,
It may go way back,
yeah, those
and I couldn't find anything in the file.
Okay.
smaller things don't necessarily stick in my head either.
President Ford, Mike McManus was here, and he was talking about the White Brook sedimentation basin, about maybe restarting that program. Not sure there's any money to do this right now, but it's something that I know that I toured it with you and Melissa at some point in time. I think that's the area. And there's maybe
I remember less than I thought.
a little weir there somewhere, but
Right, yeah, okay, yep.
I don't think there's any money really to do this right now, but it may come up, they want to remove 200 cubic yards of material.
So I get White Brook and Broad Brook mixed up all the time. Is this the one that's right by the road in
I think it's
Park,
right
or
down
is it the one
the,
further
right down the
up?
road, right at the bottom of the hill, that we
Okay.
walk down there and
Yep.
tour maybe of Jim Gracia or,
Yeah, we did a whole, they did submit a notice of intent, we issued an order of conditions, there's a.
but it looks like it expired in May 14th, 2015.
Okay.
And I didn't know about the rules of some of these automatic extension things, whether it's
Yeah.
still too far, too long ago.
When was the original permit granted, do you know?
But it would have been issued,
2014, 2012.
yeah, 2012.
Yeah, I just do it.
So,
Yeah, May 14th, 2012 was the original, because he brought a copy of it. And I know there was some funny extension things that were
There
going
was,
on.
it's August 15th, 2000 and,
I thought it was 10, but last time I thought it was 12 too.
yeah, I have my cheat sheet, I have to go back and look. It was extended twice, so they had a
Yeah.
permit extension and they did another one.
what was the day that?
I want to say it's 2008 to 2000.
It's definitely 2008.
We
It's
have May
somewhere
14th,
around
2015 as the expired
2012.
date,
Okay.
Yeah.
and 2012 as the date that it was written.
So what date was
There
it
were
written?
Conditions.
Jay, I'm sorry, what date was it written?
It was May 14th, 2012.
I think that falls within the Permit Extension Act, but we can confirm that.
Yeah, May 14th, 2012, date of issue. But it probably, because a number of people, more people haven't seen the site than have, that we just do a site visit when the project gets a little closer to action.
What were they proposing to do?
Remove 200 cubic yards of material, but I'm not sure they have the money to do it right.
Yeah, it's basically a inline sediment trap in the stream coming into Nashwanik Pond. You can permit that now, but it's a gabion weir,
Okay.
right upstream of a culvert, so, and it's full up of sediment.
Full of stuff.
So the original plan was to remove the sediment as it accumulated,
Mhm.
but it's, I think it was installed in the late 90s or something.
No one's looking at it.
And, yeah, hasn't been doing much for a long time, probably.
So when that comes, he'll be in contact with us, I assume, if that starts to get closer to reality.
And so then there was at the same time, there was another project on White Brook, where it was like an in-stream sediment trap that was also filled, so they were gonna take care of that one also. I think that was a bigger, I think that was more sediment, but it's been a long time. Anyways,
Those were all put in to keep Nashwanik from filling back in, right, after all the work we just did.
well, they were in place long before.
Pre-release.
Yeah, so it was to kind of a first step in capturing the sediment before it got into the ponds. So then the city wanted to, as part of the program of maintaining the dredge, get those functional again. That was the intent.
This is correspondence.
Do we have the sign-in sheet anywhere?
Yeah, it's right here.
Thank you.
Stand up. Hey, for 93, I think I still get around pretty good.
we already said that we had no
Okay.
jurisdiction.
There's an RDA here from,
No, I'm just trying to.
RDA here from Arcadia Wildlife. I don't think this hard copy came, but I don't know if you saw an email.
Again, it could be in the conservation email, I don't know. Some that was checked.
It's talking about a work description, a 3-day workshop focused on building and maintaining trails.
It's an RDA?
Yeah, so I'm wondering why, so
Is it just me?
it says Arcadia has about 4 miles of trail. The project is located near the beginning of the Woodcock Trail near Arcadia Visitor Center. The trail starts with a bridge over a bordering vegetated wetlands. So maybe they're putting in a trail. Proposing a new trail will create 2 switchbacks, probably 225 feet of new trail, so it would be within a 100-foot buffer zone of vegetated wetland.
First I heard of it. That might have came in while I was on vacation.
Well, it was just hard copy, no one opened it.
Oh, okay.
So if it didn't come by email at
Mhm.
all.
What's the date?
The date on it is, not joking.
It should be on the
Yeah,
same.
like the signature. With Jay's signature, you never write a line.
Yeah, 7/21/16.
It's been a while now.
Right, I guess we should.
It wasn't in the folder at the last meeting though, it wasn't in the basket, I would've opened it, so.
I think that was the week I was out on vacation, so it might have come in then.
7/22.
So do you want me to, is there an email address on the front page, like there should be in the email box? And I can let them know that they're being scheduled for the
Yes,
22nd
there
as
is.
well? Okay. And then why don't you leave it with me and I'll scan it and email it out to everybody.
Okay.
All
We
right.
should probably put this on the agenda for the 22nd also.
What's the date on the proposed work? Maybe there's one.
They're describing the project, but
Are they asking for another different jurisdiction?
say again, they're working within the buffer zone.
Yeah, we should probably reach out to them and,
Is there a name on there from Arcadia? Who's filed it?
Jonah Keen.
Jonah, okay.
Yeah.
I know Jonah, all right.
Yeah, we can reach out and see how
Okay.
urgent this is.
All right,
Okay,
I can do that.
okay.
Here.
I'll save it.
Okay.
Anything else?
With the ordinance on there?
Well, we should get that back on the agenda. I don't know
Yeah.
why it fell off, other than we've just had so many other things going on.
Yeah, well, it's just tough because we'll talk about it every so often for a couple meetings and then we get busy and then we forget everything, you know? I mean, that's the big problem is that it's hard to get momentum on these non-wetlands protection act related topics.
Yeah, the last time we got discussed it was like the first topic that I kind of spent my mind on.
Yeah.
Just keep it.
Yep. All right.
So that, other than doing some filing things, because I've got 10 things stacked up here, that's everything that I know of.
Okay, yeah, I don't think I'm aware of anything else. Talk about.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Oh,
No,
Can I just ask a question?
you can ask a question.
The fish ladder, what's the status with that? Is it complete? Is it operational? Who's in control of it? Do you know?
I thought it was complete, but I don't know what the status of it is.
Okay, I'm just curious, somebody's asked me, and I was kind of curious myself, and I said, I don't know who to ask.
I believe it's done.
Does it work?
Does it work?
I believe so. I think there was actually a salmon that was actually, did go over the ladder this year.
Now, does anybody monitor that, or?
I don't know all the answers to these questions, but I would,
Yeah, I don't mean
I would
to-
direct you to the city engineer, because I think that's under his long list of things that he's supposed to.
It wasn't a Jim Gracious list, so I
Right.
would say it's
Camera
a.
monitor.
There's a
That
camera
sounds like-
monitor, so I think
Oh,
they
is there?
go and
Oh,
they
is there?
collect the data, that's how they know the salmon went up. But
Oh.
my understanding is there was a salmon that did go over the fish ladder this
Mhm.
year.
I
But
just-
don't quote me on that.
Don't worry, I was just very curious, because, I know it had gotten stopped for a while because of funding, and,
It's a nice little area. I mean, there's public parking down there. You can
Is it?
drive down there and park your car, and it's a nice little.
yeah, okay, I'll
spot.
check it out. I wasn't sure if it was operational, and,
Did
you know,
you,
what
did
the-
you hear of anything other than just the salmon going over the?
No, I
river?
think there were other things, but I mean, it was kind of a big deal that a salmon was actually
Yeah,
migrating
sure.
up Manhan River.
Because I remember as a kid fishing down there below the dam, and I mean, especially in the
I think
spring, you
there's
get
tons of
lamprey up there, you
Yeah,
get the, you get all kinds of stuff up there, the shad.
Yeah.
I was down the river, down behind Highland Ave this year when the shad were running heavy, and I didn't see anything coming up the
Yeah,
river,
yeah,
so
yeah.
I don't know.
Low flow too, though, this year, so that can,
Yeah.
Yep.
all right, thanks.
I just, one thing too, I know the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission is really heavily involved in sampling the Manhan. I know, because I got an irate email because I wrote about, how water quality in the Connecticut River. And somebody from PVPC said, well, what about us? We sample the Manhan, so that's kind of another angle. They're really, really interested in the Manhan River right now, Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, so.
Motion to adjourn?
You could just say, if there are no objections.
No, that was true. Is there a second?
Second.
All in
I
favor?
don't want to get.
Aye.
There is a house down there.